Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well, and welcome back to the channel and another bike review. Now today's bike is something a little bit odd. It's a bike that kind of on paper, when I first read about it, I thought, meh, and it kind of didn't make any sense to me. It's the Yamaha R7, a parallel twin sports bike, brand new for 2022, and this is the first chance I've had to ride it. It does look beautiful. We'll have a look at the bike in a second. But anyway, if you're interested in the Yamaha R7, stick around, stay tuned. I'll tell you whether I think this makes sense or not. So welcome to Great Missenden at Christmas time. As you can see, little Christmas trees out here on the side, and it's actually Christmas Eve 2022 that I'm recording this. It's 2 degrees. I've had this bike for about a week, and this is the first day it hasn't been raining. First chance I've had to come out on the bike. Now I know what you're thinking, what's he doing putting up a video in springtime that we recorded at Christmas Eve? Well, sorry about that, sorry for the delay. That's just unfortunately one of the downsides of being a bit anal about making sure you've got 2 videos going up a week. I have a spreadsheet that, believe it or not, runs until July 2024 with exactly what videos I'm going to be recording between now and then. And therefore, when I get the time, I come out and do a bike review, and it's got a slot allocated to it. And this one going up in March. So anyway, there we go. That's just by the by. So anyway, back to the bike then. The Yamaha R7 came out, as I say, as a brand new bike in 2022. No changes for the 2023 model year that I'm aware of. And it's a good looking thing. Let's take a look at it. Okay folks, here she is. What a looker, eh? What a lovely looking machine this is. I think Yamaha have absolutely nailed the looks on this. It's okay, you can regard it as a sort of a baby sports bike if you like, but it looks the absolute business. It's got more than a hint of R1-ness about it. I absolutely love what they've done with the front end on this. I was a little bit unsure about this single headlight when I first saw it, but actually in the flesh it looks all right. And when you turn the bike on, you've got these excellent sort of eyebrow lights. In fact, let me show you that now. If I just turn her on, there you go, look at those. They just look quite mean, don't they? I like that. Well, while I've got her on, let's show you the TFT dash on here as well. Here we go, that's what the dash looks like. I hope you can see that okay. The only thing I would say about it is it's a little bit obscured when you're on the bike by this, the clutch cable just gets in the way a little bit, so when you're sat on here you are looking at the clutch cable. But it's a nice clear TFT. It's sort of white on black, got everything you need, gear position indicator, proper fuel gauge, I'm glad to say, and yeah, very very nice indeed. Switch gear on here, very very simple. Looks like we've got a cruise control, which is unusual. No mode selections or anything like that. And over on this side, the usual stuff, start, stop, all that kind of thing. You have got some hazard lights there, and the top yoke here quite nicely done with this finish, and the fit and finish of the overall bike is lovely. Let's have a little look round. So the front end I really like. Well, let's just turn the ignition off so we don't run the battery out while we're walking around. Front end I think looks absolutely brilliant. I love what they've done with the colours on this one. This mix of the blue and the black lowers looks really really nice. I think we've got these groovy gills cut into the fuel tank on here. These actually let some of the ignition noise, the induction noise out from the airbox, which just helps the sort of oral experience when you're riding the bike. I think that's good. There's the CP2 engine, we'll talk about that later. The exhaust I think looks pretty good. Okay, they've got to do this horrible underslung Euro 5 affair, like all bikes have to these days, or all manufacturers have to, but I think they've done quite a nice job in it. I like this sort of grilled look on the end of the exhaust there. Nice swing arms. Sorry it's a little bit messy, but it's a dirty old day today. Coming around the back end, I think it could do with a tail tidy. So many bikes could do that, but I quite like what they've done with the back here, with these sort of almost like gills through here that you can see through. Very very nice. And yeah, overall a beautiful looking bike. I think it's one you'd certainly be proud of to have in the garage, and one of those bikes that definitely you'd look back at. It's a thumbs up from me from the way it looks. Okay, welcome back aboard the bike. So yeah, definitely a looker. What about riding her then? Well, first thing when you jump on a new bike that you notice is the riding position, isn't it? And I have to say, this is an out and out sports bike. It looks like a sports bike, it feels like a sports bike when you're riding it, in that you're pretty tucked up. Hopefully the 360 camera will show my sort of tucked up legs here. They're at an acute angle and I'm well leant forward on the bike. It's not a massive reach forward. It feels like a small bike. I think if you are a large person, you're going to struggle on this. I'm 5'8", and it feels okay to me because the handlebars are relatively close to my torso and backside. I'm sitting relatively upright for a sports bike, so it's not as uncomfortable as, say, my 899 Panigale, but it's not as comfortable as, say, an old GSXR with the noughties. Sports bikes generally are pretty small these days, so yeah, tall people need not apply as far as this one's concerned. So riding position, yep, it's a sports bike. It's not hideously uncomfortable, but it's not the most comfortable either. The handlebars are quite wide actually, so it feels like you're in control all the time, which is nice. The seat on here feels quite hard. There's actually quite a lot of room on it. I can move forward and back a long way, so actually if you want to tuck down, you can do. So it works quite well in that respect. But the seat itself is quite hard. But then again, it's a sports bike. What do you expect? Okay, so here is that seat. It's, as I say, quite hard, and it actually sits 835 millimeters off the deck, so it's quite a tall seat as they go. I like the shaping on it. They've done a nice job here with these buttock bits, and it is relatively narrow-waisted at the front as well, so you can get your feet down. I'm 5'8", and I don't have any problem reaching the floor on this. And actually, that seat is a little bit lower than it was on the old R6. Let's talk engine briefly then, shall we? Let's have a look at it. Here it is. It's the CP2 engine. Stands for cross-plane crank with 2 cylinders, I think. 270-degree firing order. 689cc parallel twin. Same as in the MT-07. Puts out 73 PS, which is about 72 brake horsepower, and 67 newton meters of torque. So not massive numbers, but then again, this isn't a hairy, leery sports bike. Having said that, those sort of numbers are absolutely ample for the road. So if this is your first sports bike or your first big bike, you're never going to want for more power than that. So even though it doesn't sound that exciting on paper, it's absolutely fine for real world riding. Okay, that engine itself, when you're riding, it sounds quite nice. It's got quite a nice low rumble to it. It hasn't got the raucous growl of my V-twin Panigale, for example, but it doesn't sound that unpleasant. They've done a pretty good job on that exhaust, I think. Now, of course, it being a very slippery day, you can see these roads look covered in mud, wet, possibly some ice about still, and I've already lost the back end on this once. I ain't going to be pushing the bike too hard, so it's a little bit unfair on the bike, I guess, to come out in conditions like this, but, you know, it's when I've got the bike, it's a real world test, isn't it? In the real world, you're going to be riding your bike in all sorts of weathers, so in that respect, I guess it's a good thing. Yeah, the engine itself is nice and smooth for a twin. It's got that 270-degree firing order, which makes it sound nice. But it's not really vibey. There are a few vibes through the seat, but it's nothing untoward. It's not going to upset you. It's just enough to let you know that you're on a motorcycle, so that gives it a bit of character, doesn't it? That's fine. Let's give the brakes a little tickle. Let's have a little look behind. Doesn't appear to be anything behind me. Front brake. Actually, front brake feels nice bit of feel to it, nice and progressive. I'm just going to tickle the back brake, which actually is very good too. Now, I said just now that I lost the back end earlier. It just felt a little bit slippery on the back end, and then I decided to test the back brake up to the ABS, and the ABS, I think it's fairly basic on this. It cuts in quite quickly, but it is there. So the brakes have ABS, but there's no traction control on the bike, so you've got to be a bit easy. Anyway, the brakes work well. Let's take a look at them. Alright, so here are those brakes. On the front end here, you've got Yamaha don't mess about with other people's brakes. They make their own. Here we go. Look, 4-pot calipers on there. Twin 298mm discs on the front there, and it feels really nice. Part of that good feel might be because you've unusually, perhaps for a bike of this type, got a Brembo radial master cylinder on here as well. Maybe that accounts for that good feel on the front. On the rear, looks like you've got a Nissin single-pot caliper on there, but that actually works remarkably well for a rear brake. Alright, what about switch gear and so on here? Well, it's basically very straightforward. It is a simple bike. There are no, as I say, things like traction control to worry about. There aren't even riding modes on this bike. It's just to get on and ride it. So it's, in my mind, that's a good thing. This bike probably is aimed at relatively new riders. Let's just wind her up here on this slightly fast bit. Yeah, it's got a good spread of power actually. It's quite linear feeling. It just pulls and pulls. There's no peaks and troughs to it as far as I can tell. It's nice, again, perfect for maybe your first big sports bike, or indeed your first bike, and that it is easy to ride. There's nothing to complicate the riding. One thing I like about it is pure riding. handling wise, actually she's very nice. Just through these bends here again, I can't really push on because of the slipperiness on the roads. Oh my word, did you see that? Squirrel just nearly bought it in front of me. Anyway, we avoided him. But yeah, handling is lovely on here. Suspension feels nice and well, it's not hard for a sports bike. Sometimes you jump on, they're set so hard out of the box. This is on the soft side, I'd say. Let's take a look at the suspension on this. At the front here, you've got 41mm upside down forks by KYB, and they are fully adjustable as well. You've got your adjusters up here as usual. At the back end, it's a little bit more unusual. You've got this sort of horizontally mounted shock in there, and it looks like it's adjustable for preload. In terms of travel on the suspension, they've both got 130mm of travel, both front and back. Okay, welcome back on board. What about the mirrors on here? Well, again, not the most exciting thing to talk about, but mirrors are important, of course. I have to say the mirrors on here aren't that good. They don't vibrate or anything, but I just can't get them into a position where I'm not looking mostly at my elbows. They look quite nice, the mirrors. They're nice and steady, as I say. The view actually out of the left one, weirdly, is better than the view out of the right, which is a bit of a shame, because let's face it, you tend to use the right one more, don't you? But yeah, I'm really looking at my shoulder out the right hand mirror. Gearbox on here is very nice. It does have a quick shifter fitted on here, which is a little odd given the sort of basic nature of the bike. I think it might be up only. Let's just double check that. Let's go down. Well, you can go down, but it feels very jerky when you do so, so I'm not sure whether that actually is an up and down quick shifter or not. And also the quick shifter itself, the delay it puts in the ignition when you use the quick shifter seems to be quite a long time, so when you use it, you know you're using it. It's not the smoothest of quick shifters, it has to be said. Right, let's just jump off the bike again and have a quick look at some of the other specification items on the bike. Alright, so other stuff you need to know then off of my spec sheet are things like the weight on the bike, 188 kilograms wet weight on here, so sort of medium-ish weight, doesn't feel heavy when you're riding it at all. The tank capacity on here, 13 litres. Electronics, well, nothing really, no traction control, it does have ABS, and that colour dash is a 4.5-inch TFT. Price-wise, £8,299, so very good value bike. I mean, this is not an expensive machine, but its fit and finishes are absolutely beautiful, and it looks astonishing. It looks like a bike that costs way more than 8,300 quid, it has to be said. The quick shifter on here is optional, by the way, and I've just noted down here that it is for upshifts only, so me pushing it down without using the clutch. Oops, that was bad, sorry about that, Yamaha. The bike is available in black or blue, and there is also a lovely 60th anniversary colour scheme as well, in a sort of a speed block design. That costs you £300 more, but that one looks absolutely beautiful, and it's probably the one I have. So yeah, it's an interesting one, this, the R7, isn't it? I mean, I love sports bikes by the way they look. They absolutely look lovely. But they've never, to me, been a very practical mode of transport, just because the comfort is so bad. But then I'm an old geezer with a bad body, so you know, if you're young and lithe, you might not worry about that. And at the start of the video, I said, you know, does this bike make sense? Well, it does make sense to Yamaha, of course. It means they get to use that CP2 engine out of the MT-07 in another format, in another form. And it is a very friendly bike to ride. There's nothing about this bike that's too hairy and scary, but you can have fun on it. So, if you're just starting out your biking journey and you fancy a sports bike, this should be a great way to start. It's not in the same league as bikes like the old R6, the 4-cylinder R6 that I rode some years ago. I'll put a link to my review, and that was a while ago when I rode it, but that R6 really was uncomfortable, but my goodness me, it didn't half go. And these days you can only get the R6 in track form. So this isn't like that, it's not a 4-cylinder sports bike, a screamer. So you're not going to get that sort of thrill out of it. But it will get you used to the riding position. It does look absolutely cracking. I mean, it's going to be the envy of your mates. It looks very R1-esque, as I said when we did the look around. I think it's a thing of beauty. It does sound good as well. A lot of the sound actually from the engine is not from the exhaust, but from the gills in the tank. It's induction noise. So it's a pleasant place to be. It's a nice ride. It has a bit of character about it because of that parallel twin engine configuration. It looks great. it's easy to ride and it's great value for money, so it makes sense in all those terms. If, however, you're a more experienced biker and you love your sports bikes and you want to get into some track days and some more spirited riding, then I'd say this isn't the bike for you. Then it doesn't make sense. It won't give you the thrills of, say, an 899 Panigale or a CBR 650 from Honda. Those are the bikes to go for if you want sports bike thrills. But learn your trade, do it on an R7, absolutely fine. You get a beautiful looking bike for not a huge amount of money. So it's a thumbs up to the R7 from that perspective, if that's how you're coming at the bike. It's a thumb down for the R7 if you're looking at it in pure sports bike terms. But I've really enjoyed riding it. It's easy to ride, and even in pretty filthy conditions. I mean, how slippery are these roads? It's cold, damp, just generally horrible on the roads today, and the fact that I'm actually enjoying the ride speaks volumes, I think. So that's it for my first ride of the R7. I hope you enjoyed that video. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to make any more on the bike, just because again the weather forecast for the next few days is terrible. It's just very wet and then the bike has to go back, so that might be it for now. But I hope you've enjoyed the video. If it's the first time you've been to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It'd be great to have you along. I don't just do bike reviews here on the Missenden Flyer. I do bits and pieces about how to look after your bike in the garage. I do trips and tours at home and abroad, monthly bike news, the odd live stream. I haven't done one of those for a while. All sorts of things, basically anything and everything about motorcycles. I'll try and cover it here on the Missenden Flyer. It'd be great to have you along next time. Alright, I hope when you're watching this video the weather has improved and you're starting to enjoy the new biking season. Alrighty, look forward to speaking to you next time. Until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.